Finish before midnight, right? We'll call to order Tuesday, May 18th, City Council special meeting and work session. Need approval of the agenda.
Approve the agenda.
Seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. First and always is public comment, and I understand we have a public comment request. Eric Ostrander, if we can get them connected.
Yeah.
Oh, before we go too far, you said the fire board needs to convene?
That was my understanding, since Dr. Mark, you want to explain?
No, we posted the meeting and that's what our SDAO, our attorney said, all we had to do is post it as a public meeting as a special meeting. So we're fine just posting it.
And that's been done.
That's been done.
Eric,
Hey, can you guys hear me?
we can, thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so Bruce sent, I think he sent everyone the letter that I had sent to Orla. Hope everyone got a chance to read that. I think we'd already sent it to you guys before when we sent it to Orla. I think we CC'd you all.
Yes.
Cool. So I just kind of wanted to follow up basically what, if you guys had any questions for me, what I had to say to Orla, or any questions about what I had talked to the public works director at Madras about the implementation of a food and beverage tax. And I also wanted to give my support as a small business owner in Midtown at the Seabreeze Court, the support for a food and beverage tax that benefits the fire department. Just trying to look over my notes, what I jotted down. I think that's pretty much, and I also wanted to address the concerns with the city hall and the police department, that I have concerns about the public getting behind support for a city hall being included in this. I don't think people would have any qualms about having the police department included in this discussion about getting a new police department, but I feel that many of the citizens in town may have their feathers a little ruffled by the city hall being included in this, given one of the conversation pieces a couple weeks ago, I believe, with that the city hall doesn't have a full-fledged plan as to how it would get accomplished and where it would get accomplished at, and to provide funding for it before there's a plan for it. And kind of tying all that together, I feel I have concerns about that. But that's basically what I had to say. So if you guys have any questions about that, or if you want anything else from me, I'm here for a little while.
Okay, Eric, if you're gonna stay on the line, because we'll have probably, if we get to questions, we'll do that during the discussion on item 4.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll be here, and like I said, if you need anything from me, I'll be here for a while.
Thank you. Okay, that was the only request I know of, so we will move on to our first item, which is the ordinance. So we have an ordinance. Who's introducing this one? Jeff, where are you?
Mayor and council, you had the last, well, it wasn't your last meeting. I'm sure it was probably about 3 or 4 ago.
I never was.
Anyhow, they told me to bring back the ordinance with a few changes. We had talked about the spontaneous and maybe changing it to unintended. I did not do to the unintended. I kept it at spontaneous, but changed the language to I think reflect what what was intended from you guys. Where I put and I'll note it's a B 4.01050 and then B. That's where it's under. It says accept an application for spontaneous demonstration held to react to a current event which shall provide a minimum of 2 working days notice, or where or urgent nature to inform the city manager or city recorder as soon as practicable. And had looked through different ordinances from other communities and felt that was made sense of what was trying to get at there. The second point, I changed all these references from assistant city manager to city recorder, and then the 501c3 or C6. So those are all the notes that I had and tried to incorporate in this version. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so at that point, I have to read something. First thing, this is one of the ones where we need to have a unanimous vote. So, motion to approve or deny.
We need a motion to approve the first reading.
First reading, thank you.
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance 21-04.
Second?
Ordinance 2104 for the purpose of introducing special events while repealing parades, Title 10, Chapter 8, Traffic and Parking, amending signage, limited commercial uses, and outdoor merchandising, Title 17, zoning of the Camden Beach Municipal Code. Did last discussion? Jennifer?
Counselor Risley.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Council President Benefield.
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. We have unanimous, so we need a second motion to read and adopt.
I move to approve the second reading and adopt ordinance number 21-04.
Second?
Ordinance 2104 for the purpose of introducing a special events while repealing parades, Title 10, Chapter 8, Traffic and Parking, amending signage, limited commercial uses, and outdoor merchandising of the Title 17 zoning of the Camden Beach Municipal Code. Any discussion? Jennifer?
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Council President Benefield.
Yes.
Counselor Risley.
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Ordinance number 21-4 has been adopted and will become effective 30 days from adoption. Holy moly, that one took a long time.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, and I also want to thank Jen. She does an amazing job, always catching my mistakes and appreciate all the work she does. Thank you.
Looking forward to working on that one. Cool. Next item, consideration of Proclamation 2108, National Public Works.
Since 1960, the American Public Works Association has sponsored National Public Works Week. Across North America, our more than 30,000 members in the US and Canada use this week to energize and educate the public on the importance of public works to their daily lives, planning, building, managing, operating at the heart of their local communities to improve everyday quality of life. The City of Camden Beach would like to acknowledge our Public Works Department for the hard work and dedication given during any hour of any day when needed to support our city. The theme for the 2021 National Public Works Week is Stronger Together. By working together, the impact citizens and public works professionals can have on their communities is magnified and results in the ability to accomplish goals once thought unattainable. Staff recommends that council adopt the proclamation.
So are we having like parties planned or what?
Because we're still under the COVID restrictions, that we're going to do something on a limited basis for the team, but we'll probably look to do something a little grander when we get some reprieve from the restrictions.
I was kind of thinking to get them all out there and line them up in a conga line or something. Fun.
Good luck with
I'm going to do a little stuff on the grill out in the back parking lot on Friday so we can all stay away from each other. But other than that, that's about it this year.
Okay. Get a group photograph with masks on so nobody knows who's who.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt Proclamation 21-04. 2022-08 National Public Works Week.
Second.
Jennifer?
Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Council President Benfield?
Yes.
Counselor Risley? Yes. Counselor Ogilvy?
Yes.
Mayor Spidel?
Yes. I will read this.
Thank you.
Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the health, public health, high quality of life and well-being of people of Cannon Beach. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, and water treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Cannon Beach to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2021 marks the 61st Annual National Public Works Weekend sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association. Be it now, therefore be it resolved that the Common Council of Cannon Beach does hereby proclaim 16/22/2021 to be National Public Works Week, Stronger Together. Thank you. To the whole crew.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Good bunch.
Okay. Back for the Roberts appeal.
Mayor, Council, thank you. This is bringing back before you from your tentative decision last week to bring back before you the findings for the Raskin appeal. I will note that the amended material that came to you was because of one change on page 2 to the who submitted that petition last week. So we changed that and then tried to incorporate everything that was said at the meeting into the previous findings from the Planning Commission. Any questions or changes?
I have a question. Maybe it's just, I don't understand the wording. Page 9. Under, let's see, the first 1, 2, 3, third paragraph down. The one that begins first, General Development Policy 16/7. The very last sentence says, the imposition of the oceanfront setback simply falls further west than desired by applicants. Shouldn't that be further east? Or am I not?
Read the sentence proper, the couple.
See what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did read this.
You get bonus.
Yeah, where can I spend them? That was the only comment I had.
For finding.
Very thorough, very well done.
And I thank Bill for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
With that one little change.
It'll be approving it, the findings with the noted correction.
Second.
Well,
Hang on.
here's it's a lengthy proposed motion. If that's the one we're supposed to. All right, well, I'll do it. Having considered the evidence in the record upon a motion by Councilor Benefield to uphold the Cannon Beach Commission decision to deny the J. Raskin application on behalf of Stan and Rebecca Roberts' application for variance of oceanfront setback standard, seconded by Councilor Risley. The Cannon Beach City Council unanimously denies applicant's appeal, and for all the reasons set forth in these findings of fact and conclusions, sustains the Planning Commission's decision to deny the application B 21-02 to the extent not in conflict with the decisions and the additional analysis above. City Council adopts the staff report in the records as additional findings with the previously noted correction.
Second?
There we go. Any last discussion? Last chance. Okay. Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley. Yes. Councilor Ogletree.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Mayor Skydell.
Yes. Okay, that was rather brief. Thank you. Close the special meeting and open our work session. Topics for discussion. Our first topic is an alternative funding source discussion. And I'll turn that over to Bruce.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I placed in front of council a suggested order of discussion. It's a suggestion, but in any event, I would ask that we allow Bob Whalen from Eco Northwest to talk to you about his methodology so that you can understand, have your questions about the numbers, whatever. That particular study was commissioned by the fire district, and it was funded 50% by the city. And Mark, do you have anything you want to add before we bring Bob on? Okay. Bob, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Great.
Well, okay, so I'll explain to you what I was presented with. The question I was posed with was, what is the dollar value of food and beverage sales at restaurants in Cannon Beach, and not including alcoholic beverages? And what we did was, obviously this data isn't public data, but there is data collected from the various sources which you can piece together to come up with a good estimate. And I've been doing this type of work for years. And I guess the best way to explain this is to maybe go over what some of this data is. A real important one is the employment department's data. When you own a business and you pay the unemployment tax, you submit a form. It has the number of employees, the W-2 earnings paid out, the payroll, and it goes to the state. They collect all of this information and they total it up, and they'll put out a report every few months saying Clatsop County had 500 employees working in restaurants, and they were paid X millions of dollars. And you'll see these reports. You see it on the news when they talk about, wages are up, wages are down, employment's up, employment's down. In the state, though, if a city needs for planning purposes data specific to itself, they allow the city or the fire department for planning purposes for the state to provide, in our case, Echo Northwest, the payroll data for a year for each establishment. And we got that data. Now, obviously, I can't release that data of individual businesses, but I can add up large numbers of them to keep the data confidential. And at the end of this meeting, I have to delete all the data. So here's what the value of that data is. I got a list of all the businesses who name their primary business as either a full service restaurant, a limited service restaurant, a coffee shop, snack bar type business, or a drinking place, a bar. And I have the addresses and the names. And from years of experience, I've learned that often what's on the state database isn't everybody. And sometimes there's mistakes because the industry code is written down by the company owner and they could just put the code in wrong. It's easy to do. So I turned around and I went to the health department, Clatsop County Health Department. I got a list of all the restaurants in Cannon Beach. And then I went through it and looked for ones. And when I use the term restaurant, I'm meaning all those businesses. Anybody who sells prepared food for eating at the establishment or walking around town, not some food you would take home with you and prepare. I went through that list and the health department had other entities. There was a brew pub, which probably listed itself as a brewery, not as a restaurant, but has a restaurant. I think there was a grocery that also has a restaurant. And so I had to estimate what their sales were. And to help fill in the blanks, there weren't many, there's maybe 3. And there were some establishments that the health department has that aren't real restaurants because the public can't walk in and eat there, like the American Legion Hall, for instance, or the school or things like that. Anyway, by doing that, I got the total payroll, and I used 2019, which pre-COVID year, for all these business establishments, and the total payroll, by the way, is pretty high. It's over 17 million. Next step was I went to find out what's the ratio of payroll to sales of full service restaurants, limited service, snack shops in Cannon Beach. And there's a way to do this. In 2017, there's a business census done. Every 5 years, businesses get census forms and they have to fill them out. If they don't, the Census Department pesters them. And if they still don't, the Census Department has other data sources to estimate missing unreported values. And the census for Clatsop County has data for the whole county, all the different types of restaurants, not the individual establishments, but the groups, all the full service restaurants, for instance. They have it for Warrenton, Astoria, Seaside, and by subtracting those cities from the Clatsop County total, I'm left with the rest of Clatsop County. Then I went back to the health department and said, okay, how many of these are outside Cannon Beach? There weren't many. Most of them were in Gearhart. And it wasn't a large number. So I knew I had a fairly good estimate of the sales and the payroll for the full service restaurants, the limited service, the snack shops, bars in Cannon Beach. Now, these ratios don't change much because if you run a restaurant, typically your payroll is going to be about 30% of your sales. If it's not, you're not going to stay in business long. So using that information, the next question was, what is the alcoholic beverage sales? Obviously, for bars, it's a very high percentage of the total. Went back to the economic census and looked up what the sales were in Oregon. I can only do this on the Oregon level of alcoholic beverages to food and beverage sales. And was able to estimate how much of the restaurant sales in Cannon Beach were food and beverage. That gave me totals for that. And the answer was about $43 million, which was a large number. And I thought, wow, that's a high number. Going into this, I thought it would be 15 million. 43 was a lot. But then I looked back at the payroll data, and you could see that with 17.25 million in total payroll, you have to have a lot of sales to back that up. The next question I had was how much of what was sold is sold to people who live in Cannon Beach. And there's a way to do this too. We have from a company called Claritas. They basically do census-like data. And they have for Cannon Beach the number of households of different income groups. Pretty detailed, actually. And we know how much people of different income groups spend eating away from home, eating out. And we also know from CDC surveys they do on how much of the eating out spending people do is done within 3 miles of their home. It's very high. Just as a side point, Tolovana Park is included in these numbers, along with the Mo's down there. I was able to estimate how much was bought by Cannon Beach residents at food and beverage places, again, by different categories: full service, limited, coffee and snack shops, bars, and come up with a total. And I put that in the report. I had to compress the non-full service restaurants into one line item in my report because of confidentiality. And the answer is about 41.5 million of those sales go to non-residents. So that's how I did the analysis. And if anyone has questions.
Questions?
That's pretty thorough.
Yeah, I was fascinated how you did it. That was clever.
Well, I've been doing this for 40 years.
Hey, a question, have you gone through this kind of analysis, say for yachts or Ashland, and compared your projection with their actuals?
I didn't know anything about Ashland. After I started the work, the assignment was presented to me without anybody suggesting anything. I knew there would be a concern about, well, heck, people from, I live in Portland in a nice building. I guarantee you people in my building go to Cannon Beach and they probably, may need an EMT or something like that, and they're not really paying for it. So I knew that the point of it was we should make sure people pay sort of their fair share of what it costs. And having firefighters in my family, it's a substantial cost. So that's all I knew, but I didn't know anything about Ashland, or I did do the study for Madras, though. Which was kind of interesting. But Madras isn't really a tourist town. People, it's sort of a drive-through town. No offense to Madras, but it's not the same as a Cannon Beach.
Mr. Mayor, if I can. Bob, we asked you that when we had our meeting. This is Bruce St. Dennis, manager.
Oh.
We asked about that, and didn't you say there was also an issue? For example, you were able to access Cannon Beach information because the district was your client. But if you tried to kind of re-engineer or backwards engineer Yachats or Ashland, they would have to say, you can use our data? or give
Yeah,
you permission?
you would. That's a problem. Now, Madras did what you did, which is the smart way to do it. I mean, that's what the state employment department is there for, to help you plan. But the only way I could do Ashland or any other city without the state would be to just use the 2017 census and hope that the census reports on the city level. They might do that for Ashland, but it would be old data,
You wouldn't be able to access everything you were for our study?
No, without the
okay.
permission of Ashland.
Right. And that was, we did ask the question, and that's what stopped us from moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and one thing I did is I called the chamber and I asked them how many restaurants they have in town. And they said 25, but I said, well, this shows 27. She said, well, it could be, it's very close. And so good job.
When Bob was done with his presentation for us, I said, I hope you never had the opportunity to audit me. He was so thorough. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Before you go, one I'm kind of concerned is your final number, the 43,159 number. Do you have like a confidence level? Is there a range that you would give up or down?
I would guess I would give plus or minus 10 or 12%, something like that. It's going to be pretty close. Because I know in 2017 in all of Clatsop County, all the bars and restaurants and Dairy Queen and Gearhart, all of those things did in 2017, I think 176 million in sales. And I also know, as you all probably know, there's a lot of inflation and prices at restaurants are going up and up and up, particularly with the minimum wage going higher and now food costs going higher. So wouldn't shock me if it's well over 210 million countywide post-COVID, which is hopefully we're getting there now.
Okay, that's kind of where I was thinking too. So excellent.
Mayor, if we can ask Bob to stay for just a second. And Bob, this is something that we talked about at our meeting, that our staff had done a study a year or two ago that was nowhere near as thorough as yours. And just to give council an idea on the range, and again, using a very different methodology, they came up with about $850,000 based on a 4% levy. So it's about 210 or so per 1%, compared to about 430,000 or something in the Eco Northwest. So while we don't claim our study to be the same caliber, it's just another data point for council that we're talking about a range.
Okay. Thank you again, Bob.
Bob, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Our next point on this is going to be just discussion of the alternatives. I just want to, just for our attendees and for the rumor mill that happens out in the streets, this is a work session. We're not making decisions. The council needs to talk about things so that we are aware of the things that factor into making a decision. So comments tonight are not written in stone. Those who keep calling them.
And
Popular.
Mr. Mayor, can you also point out that before we do make a decision, we'll have a public hearing or informational sessions for the public to be involved?
Thank you. Yes, we will have public hearings, just like any other, I don't know whether this would be an ordinance or
Ordinance.
it would be an ordinance, so we would definitely have to have a public hearing. Hopefully we'd have more than one, some sort of commentary, so that everybody has a chance to add their 2 cents.
And I think that I've looked at most of the people that are on the list and they know that there was the opportunity to speak even tonight. And there will be any other time we talk about it.
Okay, so stay tuned. You want Ashley to speak now?
I would suggest that because there's just things that she's been discussing with me that I want to make sure everybody has the best understanding before you make a decision. And clearly there's some legal aspects to this that she wants to pass on. Please.
So for the record, Ashley Driscoll, City Attorney's Office. So this is a public setting. So I'm not going to dive too deeply into my legal advice to the council. I will tell you there'll be communication from me later this week that gets into some of the details that I'm going to touch on tonight. And some of the questions that you may have, I may defer to that communication. But generally speaking, the last city council meeting that I listened to, there was some questions. You know, I've definitely seen some of the communications from Orla about legality of a food and beverage tax after the Oregon State Legislature passed the 2019 commercial activity tax, which is generally referred to as the CAT. So what I'm going to do tonight is just go over really high level, what is the CAT, what it preempts, and then I'm going to give you some quotes from the lawmakers that were involved in drafting the CAT that talk specifically about this preemption issue. So from the beginning, and this sounds longer than it is, 5 minutes tops here. So the CAT is a tax on the privilege of doing business in Oregon. So the CAT is a tax on businesses. So for instance, and it's only on commercial activity, which is total revenue that each business brings in over $1 million. So for my law firm, you know, we are a business in Oregon. All of our commercial activity over $1 million is subject to the CAT. It is a tax on businesses. It is a tax specifically on commercial activity. So commercial activity is a really important word in the CAT. It is a tax on commercial activity. And commercial activity, as defined by the bill, is the total amount realized by a person. So again, there's, you know, it's basically gross receipts that a business brings in. There's a whole list of things that are backed out of that number, and then you're taxed on everything over $1 million. So that is what, really high level, that's what the CAT is.
Ashley, can I, to just let the audience know, this is a tax that's already in place that the legislature has already passed. This is not the food and beverage tax.
No, this is the tax from 2019 on all Oregon businesses. They included in the CAT bill that it preempted a tax upon commercial activity. So the city of Cannon Beach is preempted from doing a tax on commercial activity. So we are prohibited from doing a tax on a business based on their commercial activity as defined by the law. A food and beverage tax is different than that. A food and beverage tax is like the transient lodging tax. It is a tax directly onto the consumer and not onto the business. So who pays the tax is the tourist that's coming in and eating in the restaurant. It is not the restaurant after considering their total receipts. So a food and beverage tax is a tax directly on the consumer. It is like the transient lodging tax where the business is a trustee for the tax. They are going to collect the tax on our behalf. This is the direction that we go. We would pay an administrative fee for them to do that for us. And then they would remit the tax to the city of Cannon Beach. So that is how the CAT generally works. And that's how, very high level, a food and beverage tax is different from that and therefore not preempted. So in sort of researching this issue, I looked at the legislative history and I just brought tonight 2 quotes from the drafters of that bill. So this is from Senator Golden almost a year ago or 2 years ago, 5/19/19. It says the definition of the CAT or definition of commercial activity doesn't prohibit local taxes merely because they are somehow tied to a company's income or receipts. The bill preempts local governments from leveling a future tax based solely on a company's total receipts. legally and logically different from a tax on the net income or profits. Another one, this is from Representative Nathanson. As long as the commercial activity as defined by the bill is not the basis of the tax is not preempted. Cities will just have to structure the tax so it is not based on commercial activity. So again, that's just a really high level overview of what the CAT is, how a food and beverage tax is different. And I will be following up later this week with a little bit more detail on my legal advice on that. I'm not sure that I can answer in public setting every question that you have, but are there questions about that? Councilor Ogilvie.
Well, just to help me better understand this, Ashley, I really appreciate your explanation, and I'm starting to get a much better understanding for your side of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
How would a tax be structured that didn't conform? There was a tax on commercial activity, so that I could see
Right.
a difference.
I think it's important to look at who's being taxed. So the CAT prohibits us from taxing the business and saying business, you know, all your gross receipts over $1 million, we get a percentage of. That, in my mind, would be a tax that's preempted by the 2019 bill. If you are taxing differently, for instance, if you're taxing the customers like you tax the transient lodgers, that's not a tax on the business. That's a tax on the consumer.
So each individual sale is the true difference of the examples that you're
Yeah, I will get into this a little bit more in the memo.
Sure.
But yeah, they're different. I would say, like, look at who's being taxed. And then we can also look on what is being taxed, and, you know, we can look at whether the gross receipt or if we could carve out something smaller.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you define, or how is commercial activity defined?
A total amount realized by a person, and then there's some exemptions.
And person being the business?
Being the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of what I wanted to talk about tonight. We talked about this, you know, a long time ago when this first came up, and, you know, I raised this issue that the CAT had come in and sort of muddied the waters. But generally speaking, this is the perspective that League of Oregon Cities has taken. It's perspective that the city of Madras has taken. It is, you know, obviously there are some out there that differ, but there's very strong arguments that this is not preempted. So I want to talk also, Nancy, in some of the pros and cons arguments that I saw. I just want to touch a little bit on timing. So obviously you can refer this question to voters, but it's not legally required. If you decided not to do that, what would the timing be like? And I saw some mention of by tourist season or by the summer. And I want to lay out just a couple things. So, you know, let's say that, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you guys green light this tonight. You know, if we said we want to implement tonight, when could we actually be collecting the tax? So first of all, we would need to draft the ordinance, and that would take a little bit of time in terms of, you know, making sure it's you know, legally sound. You know, then we'd have to do our 2 readings. So that means 7 days before the meeting, it has to be available to the public. If it's not unanimous, it has to be read at 2 different meetings. You guys are a council that likes to meet, so, you know, those meetings don't have to be a month apart. And then because it's a tax, you can't do it as an emergency. So you would have to wait the 30 days prior to implementation. And then finally, you know, with any new tax, we would have to look at training for our own staff, you know, training for those restaurants who are essentially our trustees, would have to have training about how to collect the tax and how to remit it. So there are some systems that need to be put into place. And so, you know, I would say that by summer, even if we decided green light it tonight, would be ambitious. And then finally, one of the things that Bruce pointed out, or Bruce mentioned in his staff report, is other sources of revenue. You know, could we raise property taxes and then forward some of the funding to the fire district? He put in here that, you know, we did not have the option of doing that, and that is generally correct, but there are some nuances. I believe you guys are already at your permanent rates. We don't have the option of just raising taxes. We would have to do, a levy or a general obligation bond. The levies, I think we've talked about, the fire district has the ability to do their own levies, a 5-year levy for operating and a 10-year levy for capital needs. And then we have been talking about doing a general obligation bond, which would raise property taxes to cover the cost of the city hall and police station. But those sort of general obligation bonds are limited to capital. So we would not be able to transfer those funds to another government entity to use for operating. And even if we were to transfer any of those funds to another government entity, it would take a decent amount of work to be able to make that happen. It wouldn't be just a simple transfer. We would have to get our bond counsel involved and, have, various IGAs in place. So I just wanted to probably put some clarity or some clarification that nobody asked for on that piece, but just to be perfectly clear.
Good, thank you.
If there was going to be agreement and they did, if we did go ahead and pursue that, should there be a timeline? Because as I understand, councils really can't put a burden on future councils. So I was wondering, I know Ashland is 10 years.
And I'm sorry, for which one?
For,
Food and beverage,
pardon?
for the food and beverage?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no need to sunset your food and beverage tax. So Ashland, I think, actually I was just talking about this with a colleague, Emily, on my way down here. They have chosen to do a 10-year sunset, and even a lot of transient lodging tax, have a 10-year sunset. This tax is going to be in place until that time. That was just a political decision that was made. There's no law that says that you have to do that. And your guys' transient lodging tax is in perpetuity until you choose to roll it back.
Okay.
And Yachts does not have a sunset on theirs.
I think I just misspoke. It wasn't Ashland that had a sunset, or did you say it was Ashland that had a sunset?
Yachts does not.
10 years.
Yeah, I was thinking about the city of Hillsborough has a sunset on their transient lodging tax. So I hope that helps. Again, I will try to plug some holes when I communicate with you guys later this week.
Thank you, Ashley.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to talk about the major options that the council has to consider when working with the fire district and to address some of the issues that we have. I think that Ashley has done a great job covering the property tax option, so I will skip that unless anybody has any questions on my write-up in the staff report. Okay. Tourism lodging tax is another option that is similar to what the flexibility that you would have with the food and beverage tax. It is based on 2019 data, and this is the amount we collected in 2019. 1% of TLT collects $572,000 roughly. From that, 70% is removed and is required to be spent on tourism-related purposes. And when I say tourism-related purposes, it's all the things that are listed in statutes. But they're not for general fund sort of accounts. So from the 572,000, that's $400,000 that is set aside. That means that the city is left with 30% of the what we call discretionary revenue, and that's $171,000 for each 1%. So when I used a standard, because I needed a number to say what are we comparing against, and that would be approximately $700,000 if council decided to use these revenues to pay the debt service, say on a city hall. If that was the case, the city hall, we would need to generate a 4% increase in order to be able to exceed the 700, or even come close to the $700,000. So that's a 4% increase.
Right.
Yeah.
4% increase on the TRT.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Just clarifying.
Yes, thank you. And, we're talking about sharing the funding with the fire district. And so to accomplish the same amount of approximately $700,000 or more, that's another 4% increase. Because every time we raise it, we're only getting 171,000 as opposed to the 500,000. So that means we would have to get a number similar to what we would get from 4 or 5% on a food and beverage tax. We would have to increase the TLT by 8%. We would have the same flexibility, et cetera, as what we do with food and beverage, but we would literally be doubling what we collect from the TLT currently, which goes ahead and a certain portion of it goes into our general fund. So right now, when somebody comes in and rents a room, they pay 8%. If we were to go to TLT for 100% of the funds that we're looking for, they would be paying 16%. Another difference here is that there has been discussion about, to try to get some collection from tourists. And TLT does that, but it targets a specific group of tourists. And those are the ones that are staying in the hotels. So if somebody comes over, spends the day, eats in a restaurant, and then leaves, we didn't get any revenue from that person, even though those may be some of the people that we are, the fire department is responding to, we are providing water to, all those kinds of things. So that's the how the TLT would work. The food and beverage, we just heard from Bob Whelan how it would work. And based on the Eco Northwest, and that's the company, their estimate on a 4% food and beverage, and there's been no recommendation or of what the number should be. We're just saying if you collected this particular amount. I think the way I wrote it was each 1% would collect like $431,000. And so if that number is correct, and I trust Bob, but I'm also thinking in my mind that we did a study less intense, but it came out about half, that someplace in there is the number that we would come up with. It would, we're already taxing the people that are staying in rooms. Those people may also be taxed again when they eat, but they're getting, the services. People that are coming here for the day, if they eat, those kind of things, they would also be contributing. So I think some people are saying that there are other options that are out there. I'm not aware of any that are the magnitude of the ones that we're talking about here. We could do parking, we could do, some other things, but I don't know if we're going to get to the numbers that we can make or give the fire district an opportunity to make some meaningful changes, and also for us to address some of the things that we would be able to address with the other options we just talked about. So are there any questions?
One just on a member issue. You mentioned 8% the city currently has on room tax.
Yes, sir.
I believe that the customers actually pay around 10% because they got the state added
Yes,
to that,
yeah.
and the county chunk is also.
Yeah, I'm talking about the city portion. I'm sorry, I should have clarified that.
Okay, that's all.
But I guess what this memo was saying is it'd be another 8%.
Yeah. Well, what it would relate to is the fact that the actual customer is not paying with the added 4 and another 4 possibly for the fire department. You're doubling that. You're getting up to 18, almost 20%.
Yes.
So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Okay.
Just a question. At what point do you feel like we should analyze, just for comparison purposes, how much you'd have to raise property taxes to get the same amount as a food and beverage tax or transient lodging tax?
We can provide that information for you tomorrow. Lori's back there. I'm not sure she could go ahead and do it on the back of a napkin here.
I'm not asking for anything that immediate.
No, but we could do that for tomorrow.
Okay.
And just to clarify your question, would that to generate the equivalent of 8% of a TLT increase? What the taxing, what a real estate tax?
At your discretion, all I would like to see is an equivalent number.
Mhm.
So that I don't necessarily care what it is. I just would like to know what it takes to generate that much money. I think I have an idea about what it might be.
Yeah.
I thought staff had, excuse me, I thought staff had actually run a number like that
We may have,
Our head.
quite some time ago.
do you remember, Lori, what it was?
But I don't remember what the number was.
But we would be able to do that, but if it's okay with you, Brandon, in my example on the TLT, I used a number of 700,000 that would be the potential for a debt service, and it was around 4% in the TLT. Would it answer your question if we said, how much do we have to raise property taxes to raise 700,000? Or would you want to know, because we're figuring that if we split it 50-50 and no decision has been made, would you want, I'm sorry, we'll give it to you for 700,000. And if you want to know what it would impact if we did something for the district, you would double it.
Yes.
Okay, if that's okay. All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
All right, made it more complicated.
Property tax, would it be able to go to?
No, but I can give you tomorrow what it costs as a district, because our district's gonna be a little different.
Yeah.
What it costs to do the same to raise property tax for the district.
But there is
But
the,
I think that's something you have already
It is.
addressed with us.
It already is, and I can give that to you tomorrow at the meeting.
but to Robin's question, yes, there are the restrictions that Ashley is talking about.
And I believe you did that, didn't you, Mark?
I did, and I already have the data, I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll give it to you.
And just by way of explanation, I think it would be helpful to have as many comparisons out there as possible. Because as far as I know, those are the only three options, as you stated,
Mhm.
that we have,
That's right.
other than, like you said, raising parking fees or something like that.
I was trying to mess around a little bit with the idea of the parking fees. And I'm not as good at numbers as staff is, but I was just thinking of downtown, we have about 1,000 parking spaces in the public area. And even $1 an hour, you don't get to 700,000. So, and that's just a random busy summer kind of idea. And then kind of averaging it out for the rest of it. And I didn't get anywhere near it. It would be something that would be kind of interesting to pencil out some detail.
Mhm.
Or to the level of Bob's detail.
Even after our transportation studies.
Yeah,
it's come
that would
through
be
that.
In some,
I'd like to explore it just because it is a possible income source.
and Brandon, I think we might have collected that data a month ago. So let me see, we'll include parking to say, based on the spaces within these confines. We'll try to put something together for that too. And we can, we're talking again tomorrow, so we can, pretty sure we can have that.
Okay.
Assuming the data is already there.
Any other questions for Bruce?
I'm just thinking there could be doesn't have to be all or nothing in any of these. It can be a mix.
It could be a
simplifies it if we do all from one source, but there may be some reasons to look at mix and match.
Yes, it may. It may.
Okay, at this point, I guess, it's up to the council for discussion. Pros, cons, preferences, any ideas, kind of stuff. I know there was a list put out of some of the. Nancy, do you want to come on your list?
I don't even have it with me. Let me see if I can grab it.
Put it in the packet.
I wonder,
Okay.
it's a little different when they try to find it on the.
Well, what I did is I made just some, I just wanted to put on paper some of the things that we talked about in other meetings about whether or not we should go to voters in November, or we should seriously consider approving it before the November election. And wrote down some pros and then some cons. I did share this with Mike, and he had some ideas as well. So these pros and cons include Mike's suggestion. So my concern is that, I mean, Ashley outlined the time frame, which is, you know, a lengthy time frame, which is appropriate. But if we get started now or sometime in the summer and go ahead with that, we would be able to collect a lot sooner than if we waited until November and then waited until, I don't know, you know, next spring or summer before we started collecting. And as I say in this, in these pros, we would like to start, I think we would like to start showing a potential lender that we have the backup and we have the means, and also residents in town that we have a determination to be able to fund the projects that we want to fund without having to go to the voters and ask them to raise their property taxes. So it does provide us something that we can demonstrate that we are serious about. It also gives us a little freedom to have some funding available for some of the background work that we need to do for some of these projects, the design and architecture and so forth. So it just gives us a little more flexibility, as well as sharing it with the fire district. Fire district really needs it desperately right now. And that would give us more time, or give the fire district an ability to receive the funding a lot sooner than waiting until for another year to start receiving the funds. So that was my, basically the reason. The other thing is too, is if voters rejected it in November, it would put us in a pretty difficult position if we really felt like we wanted it to go against the voters' wishes. And I don't want to go against the voters' wishes, but I do want to see these projects funded. And if we can do it without having to increase property taxes or take it out of their own pockets, then I would much prefer doing that.
Mayor? We talked about an implementation date, and Mark and I have had some conversations on this, and both of us think that there are benefits, especially to someone that has to implement it, that the tax not be effective until January 1st of 2022. So we're not looking to do something in the summer or even the fall. Just have the fall kind of be the transition point. And we're looking at it long-term as opposed to trying to start collecting right away. But that's just our thoughts on it so far.
I definitely agree with that. I think we really need to look at the restaurants and food service industry as partners in this.
Yeah.
And the fact that they right now are in crisis mode. So this is something that is very concerning to them right now. And so I definitely would not do a hurry up, even though I understand the reasons for a hurry up. It is just adding to their burden to get this kind of function up and running quickly. And so I agree with the idea of having the fall to implement, test, and make sure that all the ducks are lined up properly. So I guess I agree with that part. I was yeah, a lot of the comments on your list were focused on how quickly could this happen? I think another thing is we really need to have some education going out. I think tonight's meeting will help. I think what Ashley has tried to explain, and just the fact that this is a pass-through tax, it does not tax the businesses. Yes, there could be potential loss of business due to visitors going elsewhere. That's a concern. Whether we agree with that or not, that's for discussion. The one that really concerns me, and this is the one I've been hearing when I go out, is that the service laborers, employees are really concerned that their tips are going to be cut. They
Would probably be larger.
what they are thinking is that there are a lot of places elsewhere in the world that automatically put gratuity on their bill. And what they're thinking is that they'll see this percentage on the bill and think that's the gratuity, and so they won't give a tip. That's education. All we have to do is present it so that people are aware of how this works. That's part of that implementation timeline. I know also that owners are very concerned that they will have a loss of employees because employees are going to be misunderstanding the whole process. Plus, they don't want to be the front line for contentious folks furthering back. So there's a lot of little hurdles that lead into one big hurdle that we really need to address before we can get some consensus from the community on this. So that's some of what I've run into so far. I know there's probably others. I think we'll hear them when we go public, but
Well, and I've heard that we aren't hearing yet from people. And I know the reason why. They think they're going to be able to vote on this in November. And I feel that it's very irresponsible of us to think that we would like to make a decision without their input and their vote. I see a real problem with equating the hotel motel industry with the restaurant industry. They're totally different animals. The hotel motel owners all got together. I recall there were 22. And they all made a decision to increase their taxes. And the reason why they did that was because you were talking to the owner who was in charge of it. Even someone who takes your bags up to your room doesn't have a tax on top of the tip that you're getting when you do that. In the restaurant, it's kind of the reverse. The restaurant person who is waiting on you, if the cook didn't do a good job, that hurts their tip. If the timing isn't right, it hurts their tip. There's a lot more balancing for that person on the floor. And I think we need to recognize that and start getting together with the restaurant people and having a talk with them and not ignoring it. The hotel people, we were all talking. We had meetings together. We're not doing that with the restaurant people, and it's upsetting.
I think we just haven't gotten to that point yet. I think that's the problem. We haven't.
Well, we could have had it available.
I think just to answer that a little bit on my side, I started doing that by going to the chamber, and we really advertised that and created that opportunity. There was input as I gave back to you from the chamber. So I think on my side, I think I did do some of that. as you guys asked. But I agree that there could be more. That was just one step of it.
One thing that's persuaded me to seriously consider the food and beverage tax is the report from the fire district on the percentage of service calls that go to non-residents. And it was like 77%, as I recall. And yet the residents are paying for all of that. And it's the non-residents that are getting the benefit of it. Already the lodging industry collects taxes for those visitors that come and stay overnight. We have the day trippers that get the same benefit of all these services and are paying nothing. So I look at those, a fairness issue, for one thing, why just one part of the tourist industry should be collecting taxes from the visitors and the other part doesn't have to at all. So, you know, I see the fairness, I see the fact that the only other alternative is raise property taxes on all the residents to continue to support services, the police and fire and city services, as far as that goes. It goes to the visitors that are paying minimal. On the issue of timing, I agree on the implementation, you know, making it later, but that does not mean we couldn't enact the ordinance sooner. So there's certainty as to what's coming up. Enact the ordinance, and then we know exactly what kind of training, what kind of preparation, and what needs to be put in place for January. I don't care, January 1. September 1 seems like a better date to me, but January 1 be fine. But rather than say it's going to be January 1 and then backing up and saying, well, we only need 3 months to implement it. And what if it takes 6 months? I'd rather go ahead and enact the ordinance with an effective date for collections far enough in the future that there's plenty of time to do the training, education, put in accounting systems, you know, whatever else needs to be done, and get the forms in place, all of that. So anyway, that's my views on it.
I'm going to add a little bit to what you started with, Mike. The fire department has done such a good job of presenting their numbers that they have calculated or counted as far as out of town rescues compared to in-town rescues and stuff like that. I asked Jason, he said their stops and calls are pretty much in the same ballpark. I'm not going to quote his number because I can't remember it and he's not here, but he has something similar. So the police are running into the same sort of context. That brought up to mind to me that if we were a small town that was not, we had 1,700 people in a town that was not a tourism resort town, we would not have that added concern. But we also wouldn't have a lifeguard program. We wouldn't have a parking issue where we have to maintain parking lots. We wouldn't have restrooms the way we do, and new ones coming. Probably wouldn't have as dramatic an emergency management program. We would have a good one, I hope, but not as dramatic, trying to compare the fact that we need to take care of tourists also, like evacuation routes and stuff like that. And we also wouldn't need the HVAC program. So a lot of the services that the city provides are kind of equivalent to how the fire department has presented their concerns. I just wanted to add that little bit of detail to what you were saying.
I think that's an important point, Sam, because if we're asking to enact the food and beverage tax, as the discussion has been presented to me, we're not asking to just put enough tax on to help the fire department. We're asking to do that and help the city. And I think it's up to us to craft that narrative. Without that, I think the fire department does a really, really good job of justifying what they're asking for. It's a lot simpler than, you know, what you presented. Our job is much more difficult to be persuasive.
To be factual and so that everybody is aware of all the issues that we seem to know about, especially after we just went through the budget. So there are all those parts that are included. This also tells me that I'm hesitant to move forward on this without some sort of community vote. I think that's a important strength to the fact that what we're doing has community support. I wouldn't feel good and about just up and doing it. Community always has the ability to come back and say we want to vote on something. That's possible. But again, I think that would help perhaps Ashley's job, and if this gets contested somehow, having a community vote would be very important. Obviously, that slows things down. I know Bruce is going to ask us, so what will the direction be to staff for the next step?
Mr. Mayor, can I just address your last point?
Please.
My thought for moving more quickly is that I think this is a momentous opportunity to help the residents to get a better fire rescue department, for to address a situation that if council decides to use this to pay debt service, to get the city hall and police station and an emergency operations center out of the EOC. Those are both things that if we aren't able to go forward, or we choose not to go forward with the food and beverage, is that we would have to ask, we would have votes at that point, and we would be asking people to tax themselves, where if we put this in place so that it is in place, then we're doing something that is highly beneficial. Where the concern, and maybe call it my paranoia, is that the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association has already written to you and said that this is illegal. They gave you a memorandum that said, from their attorney, that said it's illegal. So we know that they have their eye on this. And Mark, would you mind sharing some of what you had heard?
Well, and I think to go with that, I think if you wait until November and you put it to the vote and it passes, I think it would pass. I honestly do. I think we could do it, and I'm not worried about that. I totally agree with you, Robin, of the public input. My concern that I have personally is that, and Ashley hopefully can correct me where I'm wrong, I may be, but you put it out there, it passes. I totally expect it to be challenged, and that's going to stop it. And now we've got to wait and get it through the court system, where I believe if you enact it, it'll probably be the same situation, but we have more time to fight that battle. That's my opinion, my thought process of it.
But Mark, are you, I don't know, somebody that said that they were with folks that are opposing this, didn't they indicate that the board is keeping an eye on this?
Absolutely. I was told that today by a person that has in here that is on Orla. They are definitely watching this and planning to fight it.
So if they can move quickly enough that we become precluded before November 2nd, then the thing which I think is a total positive, and I agree with Mark, I think that it would pass. There will not be an opportunity to vote on it. And then only options for the things that we're contemplating spending these funds on would be tax from taxpayers, probably in a real estate tax. So I just think that there's an opportunity. It's not a comfortable one, but that unless you're willing to gamble on that, which, you know, there's a lot of sense in that. But is it worth our voters being having the opportunity to vote being taken away and the opportunity to do the things that we are planning or talking about doing and having them paid for by visitors, if that would be gone? And to me, that's what the balance, and it's not an easy balance on you folks, but I think that's where my concern is. I think it'll pass.
So a couple of notes. I'll address a bunch of that issue. Like what would we do if we got challenged on this? Are there ways to limit exposure if needed? I'm going to address that, you know, in not a public setting because it goes a little bit more to strategy. One thing I do want to add to the conversation is that this is an advisory question, but we are going to go ahead and put it on the ballot. One of the things that we talked about back when we talked about doing a bond is a limit on public employees' ability to campaign politically. And so once something I have to research and I'll get back to you if it's different for an advisory question rather than, putting a bond or another item onto the ballot. But I believe it would be the council that would need to spearhead the campaigning on this. And clearly there will be some opposition. So we will, if this is referred to the ballot, it's likely that a lot of the advocacy will be with the council. Bruce, would you agree with that?
Yes.
I actually totally agree with that because I don't think it's staff's job to be out promoting something in any case. That's our job. So
If I could just ask a really off the wall question, which I love those.
Oh,
She loves it.
great.
I don't give her a heads up on it.
Especially when we're in public.
Yeah. Is it possible for the council to take a vote on whether or not to implement a food and beverage tax? And then that is done and decided, but to have I heard the word advisory vote. To have that on November 2nd, just saying, do you support the action taken back in June or whatever it was? With the vote, a promise by the council that if that does not pass, that they will pull back or cancel the food and beverage vote before it gets implemented.
So what you're saying is that essentially we pass it and then we ask the voters if they want to ratify our decision?
Essentially.
Decision? I would have to look and get back to you. It sounds like an advisory question, that we can put on the ballot, a yes and no. It would be undoing a past action. I'm not aware of it, so I'd have to research and get back to you.
And I guess I would keep it advisory, but again, I'm not an attorney, but I act like one. I would keep it advisory, but the idea is that it's in place, so we can't necessarily lose it. But that the council said, if you all don't approve this, we will go ahead and take an action to reverse it.
I mean, it has to be a yes or no question. So we'd have to put it on there as a yes or no question. I'll get back to you on the details I don't see why we couldn't. It seems a little bit backwards.
I could kind of answer this in a different direction, is the fact that if we did pass it, there would be no obstruction for any resident to call forward a referendum to get rid of it. So it could happen on its own.
Right, I'm saying that you make it part of your decision. We will
Understand what you're saying.
understand, about the timing.
Could happen automatically.
Yeah. Well, right.
I like doing it earlier rather than later. And I think of how the transient rental taxes were handled. Those that were already in place prior to enacting legislation were grandfathered. I would like to see our food and beverage tax ordinance in place now before opposition bills and lobbying pressures build and legislation gets rammed through that prevents us from doing what really is in the public interest. The sooner we get started, I think, the better. Enacting it, making it effective later on makes sense. But enacting the ordinance now or soon also, to me, makes sense to establish that this is what we got. We'll get opposition, but I think we're going to be in a better position. And I'm not sure that just having the voters prove it in November gives you much leverage. All you've done is waited until the opposition builds a case and does their lobbying, and they're powerful. We all know that. They're threatening. So why wait? Why not get it started now? And I understand the idea of it'll be affirmed or give the voters a chance to reject it or remove it. Need to look at how that would be worded. So
it kind of does both.
Yeah.
Ashley, what is the potential for our opposition, for instance, the Orla group, to be able to put an amendment to a bill already in the legislature that would basically negate our ability to put a food and beverage tax on?
Yeah, I've been following this, and I've been contacting the lobbyist from LOC who works on taxes. His name's Mark Benarcht, I believe. I'm definitely saying that one wrong. We'll go with Mark. And I've asked him to track it, and I asked him as early as this week if there is anything looking to prohibit or preempt a food and beverage tax currently in the legislature, and he said no. There were a couple amendments to the CAT, but they were not relevant to this issue. So again, as I'm going to explain on later this week, there are ways that we can structure our tax to be even more defensible. And I am going to want to talk to you guys about that as we go forward.
But there could still be a potential for an amendment to a bill that would.
Anything's possible. And that's, I think, some of Bruce's concern is that, if there is this sort of saber rattling about this issue, and this legislative cycle, another legislative cycle, they do something like they did with the TLT, and did very clearly preempt some local government action. We would like to be grandfathered in if this is the direction Canada Beach wants to go in.
The only concern, and this is, I'm not a legislative expert at all, but I've heard that it is not difficult for them to predate post date.
Mm-hmm.
So they could literally say this now takes effect as of January 1st, 2021.
Yeah.
And that would just negate any hurry up that we tried to do. Right.
So that is true to a certain, and we have talked about that. There's no guarantee if we pass it tonight that there's not going to be something that passes in the legislature that is retroactive to some degree. More often than not, it is like a date certain from there forward, because if a local government enacted something and it was legal at the time, you put money and effort into organizing it, they're less likely to tell you can't collect your tax.
I would be actually more surprised if the legislature did anything quickly, but it's possible.
Yeah, definitely possible, especially if you have a lobbying group as strong as Orla. They can get in there, and they still have a couple more months left yet in the legislature. So
The end of June.
usually at the end of June. When I worked there, we got out on July 4th. So yeah, it can.
I'm going to go back and try and wrap this up a little bit. We don't have to, but I'm trying to. The idea that we need staff suggestions to staff of which way we might want to head. My thinking is how quickly can we get some public input? Because I could not go for a straight up vote, straight up decision right away. I would need to hear from public. Whether the decision is for implementation immediately, or whether the decision is to pose a vote by the residents.
Why don't we just call for a public hearing, like any ordinance, but make sure that there's going to be ample time, multiple opportunities to speak their mind, ask questions, and let that suffice for quote the vote. I mean, that's, everybody opposing, we still have to make a decision. But it'd be helpful if we had all that information.
I agree with that, but I would almost also want to make sure that we had a chance for like we did for the lodging group, is to gather some of the representatives of the restaurants so that they can come in and air their concerns first. That gives us some counterpoint to what we've been hearing.
I think it's a good idea.
So I would say this, how soon can we do that? I'm sorry, Ashley.
I think
This is kind of directed towards that. I haven't, started drafting an ordinance or started drafting a ballot measure, mostly because, really haven't known where we want to go and didn't want to spend your money without having direction. But one thing that I can do, which I think may help the discussion, is put together a starting point ordinance. So this is what this tax would look like. Here's who would be on, here's how it would be collected. And basically, we don't need to completely reinvent the wheel. We can look at Madras, we can look at Ashland, and we can look at Yachats and put together, a starting point for your guys' discussions and for circulation.
Yeah, and I'd really suggest that we are very accurate about the percentage, because when Eric brought up his letter, it was 2%. When Bob was talking about it, it was 4%. I hear Bruce say 5%. I think we need to be very consistent with what we're saying. We're asking the public to do.
Well, furthermore, we need to be very specific about what we're going to do with the money.
Mhm.
And that, I think, would go the farthest in getting public opinion
Yes.
behind it.
To answer, we can continue that discussion tomorrow night.
Yeah, really.
And Sam, to answer your question, we can have a meeting as early as next week. But I think that as busy as everybody is, we should probably, and we want the restaurant people, that we have it at 8 o'clock in the morning. And probably have two opportunities, maybe like Tuesday and Thursday or something, so that you can have that information and hear from folks, and also say, we'd like to hear from you in writing if you can't make it, so that you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, now we can go ahead and do that. And I promise I won't lobby on this again. But I think in doing this, we have to be cognizant of the possibility that this thing will go on long enough that it is possible to go ahead and preempt us. So to me, I think this is so important and so valuable to the city that from a risk to go ahead and make that time as short as possible is a good risk because of losing the opportunity. So if we, in deciding these meetings and things like that, I would just ask that you make them as quick as you can and make your decision as quick as you can, so that, we don't lose that. And, Mark has left, but we do know that Orla has a plan to take action.
I hear what you're saying. Personally, I'm less concerned with that risk than I am with alienating our citizens within our community. So the hurry up really disturbs a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I'm kind of tired of hearing it. I think hurrying up is counterproductive. A good idea will be a good idea.
But if you don't have the chance to vote on it, that's what we're potentially taking away from.
I won't vote unless the public is involved.
Okay, understood.
I can say that right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it sounds like we need to get the public involved very quickly.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So when do we decide when we're going to have the public meeting?
Probably need to decide now so that we can start setting them up and notifying people. So I would suggest maybe Tuesday and Thursday of next week. I can talk to Jim Pano. I know he's on the phone or he's on Zoom. But just find out what the best time is for folks.
So do you want to do that before you have a starting point ordinance? Do you just want to take a look at what Ashland and Yahats and Madras proposed?
It would be nice to have a starting point, ordinance or a draft of some kind, just so that people have some clarity and commonality of what they're talking about. So if you needed a couple of weeks to get this together, I don't know what you're gonna need.
Well, me either. I'm thinking about it. I mean, we could get something to you pretty quickly. My preference would that, I put it together, I run it by, Bruce and staff and get their initial input. And then you guys have a chance to look at it before we start getting public input. Because you guys might, this isn't what I was looking for, or I want to change X, Y, and Z. So, I think I could get you something or get something to staff next week. And then if we could get something on the agenda for you guys to take a look at it and then say, okay, this is what we would like public comment on, understanding that it's a starting point.
Without that, we can't accurately answer any questions that are presented to us. We have to have something that we say, this is how we see it right now. This is what we're proposing, and be able to answer questions that would it do this, would it do that? But just getting the input before we have that, you're going to get a bunch of input by people that haven't had the opportunity to really understand the details of what's being presented. So I guess I'm agreeing we need to hold off a bit on that meeting next week and make sure we have our ducks in a row.
Following week.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, the following week.
Critter, I don't know.
So do we want to set up a meeting to take a look at that proposed ordinance?
We can do that, just have her send it to us. And send back question or concerns to Bruce. I think we can do that online stuff, can't we? To give you a critique on.
I think you should probably do that in a meeting.
Okay.
I mean, you can individually send comments, but in terms of all discussion should be in a public meeting.
And it has to be advertised too, doesn't it? Would that meeting have to be had?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So we need to have time for that.
We'll probably talk 2 weeks from now.
Well, how busy is the council meeting on the 1st?
Give me 1 second and I will let you know. It's not as bad as some of the other ones. So June 1st, we have the Guild and SEIU contract approvals. We have a handbook resolution, a rate resolution, a budget amendment resolution. We need to discuss the ECFR final plan update and possibly the CBE architect engineer RFQ. So when I say it's not bad compared to this month, but it's still a good size agenda.
Bruce, what are your thoughts?
That puts us in the first week of June. And then we're looking to have a meeting 2 weeks later. Then you don't have time to approve it by June 28th.
I have heard nothing this evening that would make me feel compelled to be able to make a decision by June 20th.
Well, if we take that on to the council meeting, we're looking at the draft. I think then we could, how quickly would we need to call for a gathering of the restaurant folks? That could happen later that week.
It's possible, especially if we gave them advance notice that we wanted to do it.
Yeah, the meeting would be a good place also to announce it. So.
As a matter of fact, I'll contact Jim tomorrow and see if he can give us some guidance on when folks say, I could probably do it in this time frame.
The only thing I could say right now is the 3rd is out for me. My wife's getting some surgery on the 3rd, and the 4th might be also.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that's of June,
Yeah,
which if you're voting on it on June 1st,
we're not voting on anything. We're just
the
looking.
language, not voting on the, but I'm approving the language.
Yeah, we're just looking and discussing what Ashley brings to us.
I mean, we could probably do that quicker. So, I mean, do you have, if we're just talking about a draft, do you guys have meetings next week?
We actually don't. Didn't.
How could that have happened?
But we could on, council chambers is available on Tuesday, the 25th, which is next Tuesday. If you wanted to have a meeting.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, just like.
Why not?
Well, I don't know if we've broken our record from that dune management problem, but
I think we're close.
Yeah, works for me.
So if we're gonna do that for a May 25th meeting, I'd like to tag an executive session on, just to go over that memo that I'm gonna get to you guys. That work, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we doing now on the,
20, what we're proposing is the 25th to talk about the language and also have an executive session to talk about the strategy legal issues.
and what time are we doing that at?
Okay, we do everything at 6 now.
So do you want to, your regular meeting at 6 and then at the executive session, do you want it at 5 or 5:30?
5:15?
Meet in the middle?
Okay.
However long you feel you need to make a presentation that won't be, rushed.
It's more about questions.
Okay.
There we go. Sounds like some movement. Okay. Any last discussions before we move on to our next item? No.
In absence of Mark, is there anything that the board wanted to add?
Well, I'll throw my 2 cents worth in it if you guys want to hear it. Like Sam's phone, mine's been lighting up about some of the same concerns that you brought up. My response to them has been, we are surrounded by all of our states have sales taxes. Most of our tourists come from those 5 surrounding states. There's concern about people taking their tips away from the customer, taking the tips away from the waiters because of the tax. I don't think anybody from Seattle that pays a 10-12% sales tax on everything they buy is going to worry about 4 or 5% food tax here at Cannon Beach. As far as them going to the seaside, I don't think they're going to go get in their car and go have lunch in Seaside and then come back to Cannon Beach. I don't think that's a valid argument. And I think if you put this to a vote of the people, I am tired of paying property taxes for the fire district, for the city, for everything else. And if I've got a choice of having 77% of our tourists here pay for some of our infrastructure, from parking to restrooms, the police, the fire district, I'm not going to vote for a levy to do that. I'll vote for the tax. I think that that's the consensus that you'll find if you put this to a vote of the people. I'm amazed if we did. But that's my 2 cents. The district has the ability to do that for property tax, and the fire board has been adamant that we are trying our best not to do that and add more taxes to the property tax rolls. So that's where we're coming.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Shall we move on? Right.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, we're good. So a little technical discovery, trying to find an image. So our next item is the monuments over at our Naples Park. Bruce, do you want to start us off?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting several weeks ago and Dick Bash was not able to complete his prior meeting to be able to go ahead and address council. And so he is asked to do that tonight. So Rusty, if you would line him up, and Dick did send us some graphics that we are now able to project.
Dick, are you with us?
I'm there. I'm trying to, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, we see you.
Yeah. Hi, you guys.
Hey.
Well, after listening to your meetings so far, I think you need some light entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's me. That's what I'm going to try to do. You guys have some tough issues before you. So Jen, I don't know what order you want to do, but what I guess what I'd like to do is take you for a little stroll across the bridge on Hemlock and walking towards the school. And when you get to that trailhead, on the south side of the trail will be a vertical stone that will set, it'll be halfway down the hill, and it will rise above the sidewalk probably 4 or 5 feet. So it will be seen definitely by people walking, and it will also be a silhouette there, and on it will be, do you have that drawing, Jen?
I do. Rusty will put it up. The one you just sent?
Yeah. Okay. The one stone on the left, it will say Nakus, arched across the top. There we go. The one on the left. And that will be carved in the stone. And then under that will be a bronze plate shape, which will have a scene of the village of that site 300 years ago, as it was back in the beginning, so to speak. And that again will be in bronze. And it's, I think I sent you one of the images. It's really nice. And then under that will be a rectangular bronze plaque that the top part will be a place for gathering narrative, which let me say that the text, the only text change to the text was on this piece. There was no change to the content. It's just, it was a bit wordy for people to stand and read, and a bit too wordy to have font large enough to read. It was so that was edited down, but the content remained the same. That will be on the top of the plaque, and then there'll be a space and a new heading, which will be "What can you learn from a name?" And that is, again, it will be legible from the sidewalk. And then when you walk down the trail, there will be a small stone that faces, you would stand looking at Ecola Creek, and it will be a small stone with a plaque that it has acknowledgements. It'll talk about the city of Cannon Beach and Lewis and Clark organization and the tribe. And it'll also acknowledge Guy Coleman, who carved the pole, the welcoming man. And then as you walk down, you get close to the welcoming man, and there'll be a smaller stone, but wider, and it faces, it's like a 45-degree angle on the face of it. So, and you would be looking at the pole as while you read this, and there'll be another bronze plaque that has the story about the welcoming pole, and all along the North Coast, tribal communities raised welcome poles, such as the one you see here. The pole lets arriving guests know, so long as you treat this place and its people with respect, you are treated with great respect here too. And that plaque, that circular plaque, is about, I'd say 14 inches or so. And it has a thunderbird that's wings are arched around the edge of the plaque, so that it sort of encompasses and frames the plaque. And there's a scene there that has the welcoming pole. It's and that again, that's in bronze. And then below it, the canoe, that is all carved into the basalt, and it's coming along just fine. It's what Pat Costello, the artist, is doing. There's been an issue with the foundry, and we're looking at 4 plaques that he creates in plaster, and then it goes to the foundry, and they do all this wax and all that process. And so there's been a little backup at the foundry, and so he's wanting to get these through that process. He's been working on the stones, but majority of the stonework is going to happen after he gets the bronze work in. So Karen Labonte and I had talked 2 months ago about timing for when the stones would be put in place, and that she said that the city would work with Pat to carry out that process. And so we had set the week after Labor Day, Memorial Day, and I left her a message today. We're looking at more like the 15th of June. And what will happen is they will be placed permanently and secured. Then he will continue to carve on the stone at the site. And I think that's a great educational tool, and will really get people's attention, which is a good thing. So, and we had talked about having a modest ceremony, kind of welcoming, mid-July to August 1st, where there's a lot of factors, but we should be able to. I'll talk with you, Bruce, and whoever is designated, and coordinate between the tribe and the city and the Lewis and Clark group, and see what works out. but, you know, it's going, this whole project is it's going to be so beautiful, you know. Of course, I'm excited about the content and what it's going to do for the community and educate the visitors. But on another level, it's just going to be so beautiful, you guys. So that's about all I have to say. And I hope that lifts your spirits.
It's gonna be a little bit of a challenge, Dick, to get the mayor to speak, but
Oh, gosh darn that guy.
no, this is absolutely beautiful. I'm very, we got pictures of the Nicholas Medallion and the place for gathering, so we've got that document. And what
Good.
the way it's placed on the stones, I think that's very clever. So, very
Good.
nice.
Good. Well, if there, are there any questions?
We look forward to it.
I've done my work.
Yeah.
Good.
You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dick.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
You too.
We will now, Dick.
You've had your break.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's gonna be impressive. Okay. We have another presentation by, I believe, Friends of the Trees. So hook up Jan and Bruce, do you want to introduce?
Certainly, Jan Siebert Warman will be talking about Friends of the Tree.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, hi. I'm Jan Siebert Warman, and I don't think I need to give my address, but I'm speaking for the Cannon Beach Friends of the Trees tonight. Dear Cannon Beach Mayor and City Councilors, thank you for listening to our brief presentation tonight. And thank you also to all of you for helping our Cannon Beach trees to survive and thrive. As we know, trees play an important role in our town, helping to make it the lovely place it is. They not only enhance our community's natural beauty, they shade our homes, businesses, and streets. They clean our air and water and help reduce our stormwater runoff. Trees lower our energy costs and increase property values. Our green infrastructure actually increases in value and service with time. Of course, trees also play a vital role as wildlife habitat. As we mentioned at your meeting last month, one of the main projects we'd like to see in our town is a Heritage and Significant Trees program, where the already established special Cannon Beach trees are located and monitored, and the public is encouraged to nominate more trees for heritage or significant tree status recognition and protection. As you know, thanks to the work of Barb Knopp and other members of the Parks and Community Services Committee, city staff, the city arborist, various volunteers, and others, Cannon Beach is once again designated as a Tree City USA community. The Cannon Beach Heritage and Significant Trees program would serve to further educational, recreational, and environmental preservation purposes, while at the same time enhancing the overall aesthetic values of our community. Thanks to Mayor Sam for expressing his interest in and initial support for a project like this, and for sharing with us his desire also for a map of our Cannon Beach special trees. We've thus included in your packets a copy of the Lake Oswego Heritage Trees map, as a possible example for Cannon Beach to follow. Also in your packets are some informational sheets from the Portland Heritage Tree Program and an actual heritage tree nomination form for possible uses in our program. Heritage trees are those which are significantly large in height, diameter, or both, are significantly old, are located in a specific area, are of a unique or rare species, are of a particular horticultural interest, and or have a documented history. Significant trees, such as those like the old, sadly now gone, Cannon Beach wedding tree, could be a part of the program as well. Their inclusion might be a way to stimulate even more community excitement and participation. At the suggestion of our City Planning and Community Development Director, Jeff Adams, we've already given presentations to the Cannon Beach Garden Club, the Cannon Beach Planning Commission, and the Cannon Beach Parks and Community Services Committee in regard to this program, and we've received enthusiastic support. Both Jeff Adams and the Planning Commissioners suggested that the appropriate group to guide this process further would be the Parks and Community Services Committee, which acts as our Cannon Beach Tree Board. This group would be the appropriate body to create specific criteria, guidelines, and a public nomination process for the city program, with a final decision-making taking place at the city council level. It's our understanding that trees in Cannon Beach, which currently have some special protection and which are thus required to be pruned in conformance with the International Society of Arboriculture, or ISA, pruning standards, and which have been referred to in years past at city meetings as Cannon Beach heritage trees, are those which are 1, more than 30 feet in height, 2, more than 30 inches in diameter, 3, south of Acola Creek, the trees located west of Hemlock Street, and 4, north of Acola Creek, the trees located west of Laurel Street. These rules are listed under Chapter 17.70.030, Additional Requirements of the Cannon Beach Tree Ordinance of our Cannon Beach Municipal Code, and you can see Section J, items 1, 2, 3, and 4. In closing, we'd like to offer you our assistance in mapping and monitoring the heritage and significant trees, and in any other way you would see fit. Please let us know how you see this program moving forward. Our Cannon Beach trees are one of our community's greatest assets. May we all come together to take care of our trees for both present and future generations, residents and visitors alike. Thank you. And we'll give a copy of this presentation letter to Jennifer Barrett at City Hall, so you can all have it if you'd like to refer to it.
Thank you, Jan.
Thanks, Ann.
You're welcome.
See, I did kind of kick this into gear, so I would 100% support moving this forward, trying to get it into, I like the idea of the nomination program. So I'm for it.
Sounds like a wonderful thing to enhance Cannon Beach.
That sounds positive. Anybody
I just, do you agree with the recommendation that it would go through the park committee initially, or is it something that we just brought to the council?
I would have no problem with starting it, getting staff to work on it, but I don't know, staff would probably just turn to the Parks Committee to do the labor anyhow, so.
However you want to move forward, but that would make sense to give it to Parks.
Yeah. It makes sense to me, just pass it on to them so they can put a recommendation ahead back to us, you know. We'll see how it goes. I would like very much, if we do give it to Parks, to make sure that they work with the tree group. I know there's a few added folks from the tree group that might have added information. But they're mostly all the same folks anyhow. Okay. And also, having been somebody, I've been, slight anecdote here, I've been working with the CERT team, trying to do mapping of the community, and I've found spots of this town that I've never seen before. So there are trees that are pretty impressive. Okay, so we'll move on. I think we will, again, we'll move that forward to the Parks Committee. Next item, Midtown Bathroom rebuild. Karen.
I told you last week when I talked to you about the budget, I'd be back to talk to you a little bit more about the Midtown Bathroom. In your packet, if you'll take a look at the drawing as I kind of give you some background here, I'd appreciate that. The Midtown section of Cannon Beach, as you know, has seen a significant increase in tourist traffic over the past several years, due in large part to the draw of new businesses. It is not uncommon to see long lines outside the only public restroom in this area of town. This bathroom facility is over 45 years old and remains in the original condition other than normal maintenance and upkeep by the city. The city has taken added steps of renting portable restrooms to sit outside the existing restroom building in Midtown to supplement the limited fixtures available inside. Last year, the city had to reimburse the rental company for vandalism to the portable restrooms, and Public Works staff decided it was time to consider a remodel or possible addition to the existing bathroom building to address the numerous issues at this location. If you recall, in 2020-21 budget year, the Budget Committee and Council granted the funds to replace the existing bathroom fixtures at all of our public bathroom locations with upgraded stainless steel type fixtures to reduce the susceptibility to damage. Because the Midtown restroom location presented several challenges beyond just fixtures, staff did not include this location in the upgrade project in hopes of receiving approval to remodel this location. A complete architectural analysis was performed to determine how the city could increase, hopefully double, the number of fixtures inside this existing location while working within its landlocked footprint and eliminate the need to rent portable restrooms going forward. Based on the limited space, the architect felt the most reasonable solution was to add a second story to the existing building. This is a design that has been used in other public restroom facilities across the US where square footage is restricted. This design meets all ADA requirements, increases the number of fixtures, and replaces the current fixtures with the new lower maintenance stainless steel water conserving style fixtures. Based on the preliminary architectural design, this remodel and building add-on is estimated at $200,000. Please refer to attachment A for the design. Staff is actively seeking funding opportunities available to move forward on this project, pending council support and agreement. Recommendation is provide staff with additional direction or approval to move forward with obtaining design review board approval and seeking funding for the remodel of this public restroom facility. I am on the agenda for Thursday night's DRB to present this design to them and get their feedback. Questions? I'm sorry?
What's the height?
20
20?
for the ridge.
It meets our maximum height requirements. I know that. Dave Veneta is very familiar with what our restrictions are. And so obviously he had to stay within that. I wasn't even sure we were going to be able to get a second story on it to double the amount of fixtures that we have. And he said absolutely could.
Actually, I think it's a little under. Height.
I have to go back and take a look at it again.
That would be my only architectural peak, is to give it a little more weight on the roof, just because it looks better. But this, this is fine.
Could you move the women closer to upstairs so they don't have to walk so far?
I was curious that there are handicap stalls on the second floor.
There's handicap stalls on the first floor, not the second floor.
Okay, well, the drawings here show stalls on the second floor, so I was just kind of curious what that meant. And I'm sure this is still a concept drawing, so
Yes,
that's fine.
they put something together for me to be able to get in front of you guys and we can modify it if there's any concerns.
Design wise, no, I have no concerns other than the roof. I would just play with a little bit. I'm assuming by the drawings again that they're looking at a solid railing. It's like a shingle situation, which is good because that's safer. It also is kind of more secure, which is from again, I don't have any problems. It is always dumbfounding to me how expensive these buildings are.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
How expensive a bathroom is, but because
Lots and lots of plumbing.
lots of yeah, it's crazy.
Bathroom is the most expensive part of your house.
Bathrooms and kitchen.
Karen, you don't have a site, the building cited on the lot, and if you could speak to the limitations that don't enable you to increase the square footage on the ground floor.
The actual footprint would remain the same, Brandon, so we would not be expanding the current footprint.
I'm sorry, that's not my question.
I'm sorry.
What are the limitations that keep you from expanding the ground floor?
I'm sorry. We have our pump station behind it, obviously, but for the setback requirements and things that would be required for that particular spot, we're not able to increase the footprint to meet the landscaping requirements. There's a artistic bench out in the front currently, so we're not able to expand front or back or sideways. We're basically landlocked.
I understand to the west, but what about to the east?
As I understand it, after talking to Jeff and Dave, we would not be able to expand it.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing why.
I've just been told that we're landlocked based on the setback requirements for that particular location.
Okay.
It would be helpful though to show a site plan so we can see where it's physically located in relation to the bench and the pump station.
Okay.
I'm sure the design review would appreciate that. More,
I believe it's a requirement.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll pull that together before Thursday's meeting so that you guys can see that in their package as well.
I think it's a great idea. It'll really be nice not to have extra porta potties and things around.
It's a unique solution to the problem.
Yeah.
We'd never have thought of going upstairs for the bathroom, but Now, if you gotta go, you gotta go. So
I'm hoping that if we get this nailed down to the DRB and your comfort level, that we are able to get some of the infrastructure money that is available from the feds and their program. If not, I'd be keeping my eye on the tourism dollars and stand in line for those dollars if possible. That's obviously badly needed. I brought my heavy guns back up over here. That's been here. This bathroom was in existence when Kurt rolled into town, and love to see this rebuilt before he retires.
They're really old then, aren't they?
I guess we have to give Kurt first chance. Use it when it's done, right? Okay.
You're cutting the ribbon.
Thank you, Karen. Next item. NH Elementary rejuvenation materials. Bruce.
Sure, the materials are down here. If you would like, I can bring them up and put them in the middle of the dais. I'll talk to the specific color.
Down there.
Oh.
Sandwich board.
Yeah, I am a sandwich board.
Yeah. Already looked.
On the other side of Sam.
What am I with?
Well, caution by Rusty not to drop things on the mic. This
This is Bevel side.
That's Bevel siding, that's not shingles.
Secret though.
Well, that's what they. We went about them halfway, and that's what they provided us.
They gave us half a sample.
Yeah.
Okay.
So recommending these two. I don't know if they have a note on that one. Yeah, there's.
So these are the same.
Oh, they're
No,
different.
no, they're not. You need really,
Those
just
are-
check them both.
Those are thicker.
Yes, this is a much more substantial.
From the edge.
Oh, sure.
These are a whole different roofing system.
How do they hold that?
Very well.
Both of them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're asking is, are those recommendations acceptable and the materials acceptable so that we can ask for approval from DRB for both? And then we will bid them both. And then you'll have a choice or a chance to make a choice based on dollars, based on aesthetics.
I'm comfortable with both, and I would hope the DRB might consider other colors. That's all.
Consider what?
Other colors. The lighter kind of gray maybe, but I'm comfortable with either of them.
The problem with the color in the sample is look at,
Yeah.
this is granite gray. It's supposed to be the same one. They don't look anything. So we're just going by these. You don't know what you're really gonna have.
My experience is that top darkens over time.
It's because the granules fall off.
I'm sure those are more expensive.
Very much so.
Yeah.
They just look it.
Is there a difference in the life expectancy of these?
This is lifetime.
What though?
Don't say light. That has warranty differences. The wind rating on that one is probably higher than this one, but I don't see any reading.
No, that's right here, 130 mile an hour.
So is this one.
And does it say what the life expectancy, how many years?
I don't know.
It doesn't, it just speaks to the
It's lifetime limited warranty, so.
algae
And this is-
resistance.
Lifetime warranty.
Yeah, but lifetime of what? Of the building or of these shingles or?
Yep. They lived out their life. It was 6 months.
I think that means that if they fail, they'll replace them. It doesn't say when they'll fail.
I would like to get a little more definition of life expectancy, yeah.
If you're saying yes to the colors that are pointed out, then that's what we will present. And recognizing that there's always, dye lot differences. And I know they'll understand that. Yeah.
I'm curious why they recommended these two particular colors over that wide choice.
We can ask.
He spoke to the fact that the shingles, he wanted a contrast with the grayed out cedar shingles on either end of the building.
Yeah, I think that was it.
And if you put it,
Painted.
Yeah.
if you put the dramatic colors, the reds, yeah, you got some issues as far as trim tones and, he was presenting what we had, which was a battleship gray. The trim and stuff, so.
Yeah, I guess the question is, are we going to keep the battleship gray on the ends? Maybe an architect may have totally different ideas of
It's possible.
colors there.
That's where I would hope the natural shingle would stay. But
Yeah, just go with natural shingles instead of painting it.
And that gives us the contrast between the darker tones and the lighter tones.
Yeah. Okay. Works for me.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do you have any questions that we might be able to answer by tomorrow, since we're going to be meeting? Or are you ready?
A real roof shingle, I'll bring you one.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's a piece of metal siding.
Well, it's a piece of cedar to show what
He said
cedar.
it was for siding. He was giving it to you just so that you could see what the color and the wood would look like. But he said it's actually a siding shingle and not a roof shingle. That's all he could get his hands on for us.
I guess, again, if you can find out what the.
Warranties?
What the,
Well,
Yeah.
the warranty and the cost difference between these two samples.
one's thicker than the other.
Yeah, so. The thicker one gives you a little more texture, but if it's gonna cost twice as much, who needs texture?
We will see what they can provide. We'll ask. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Next item. Water and wastewater rate increase.
Lori has just been waiting all night for this.
Sure have.
Read it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and city councilors. Way back when, February 4th, we all got together. It was the Karen and Lori show. We presented PowerPoints, with PowerPoint presentations. Karen reviewed the water and wastewater master plan projects. And kind of prioritized some projects in the water fund. We named those phase 1, 2, and 3. I think you'll remember what those projects were. Also in the wastewater system, we identified the pump station projects.
The first phase 1 and 2 water projects were included in the budget that you reviewed the past 2 Wednesdays. And you saw the debt service in there associated with that for the first year of fiscal year end 2022. And we also did the same thing with the wastewater budget. We put the pump station projects in there and the requisite debt service. And therefore, we had to increase water and wastewater revenues to pay for those projects and some operating costs. So you'll see that it came out as a 4% increase in the water utility. And that would take us from $24.20 for a 3/4 inch meter to $25.17 per month. And the per 100 cubic feet base cost would go up to $6.29. That hits the target in my rate projections. When I came before you, I thought, okay, based on the projections, it'll probably be a 4%. So that came in right on. And you remember these projections in the PowerPoint. That raises $103,657 additional dollars. And the wastewater fund, that actually came in at a 3% increase. And my projection was much higher than that. It was like 22%. And that is because the baseline numbers that we used were a little higher than really actually what the budget is that we proposed and the budget committee approved for 2022. And we had some beginning fund balance, which if you recall, I mentioned that we used toward that. So we got to a 3% increase for wastewater, which is good. And I will be updating these projections every year to see, if we're hitting the targets. Just like this, it shows you that there is some wiggle room in here sometimes where things change. So in the wastewater, the 3% increase raises $125,270. And it is to do those pump station projects that I just mentioned. The current rate for a 3/4 inch meter is $26.32 per month. And that will go to $27.11 per month. The 100 cubic feet base cost will go up to $678 from the current rate of $658 per month. Our ordinance includes storm drain fees. Those are not increasing, so that will be stated as a no change item there, just to keep that where it's at. You saw the history of residential utility rates and how they compare. We haven't had a rate increase for a couple years, I think, but we did change the way we charge for the usage. Now everybody gets a standard 400 cubic feet. So we were able to realize some extra revenues just making that move alone. And so you do have the ordinance or the resolution in front of you. I think I misspoke, not ordinance, resolution. And we're hoping to bring that back to you at the June 1st meeting. And so staff is recommending that we adopt these new rates beginning July 1st, 2021.
Yeah, I don't have a calculator, but in the resolution, we're using the number 4%. And is that an exact 4%?
Yes.
Okay, it didn't just happen. You forced it at 4%. When you look at the report. I mean, your analysis. I'm wondering how you got the 103,657. Did you,
That was based on the projection.
okay, you projected 4.0%.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. I followed what my projection gave me, but I did not do that with wastewater.
Anybody else? We've been through this for a long time, but
Yeah, it looks like it's been 3 years since we've had a rate increase.
yeah.
whether you want to move this forward to the council meeting.
Same here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mayor, is it okay with the council that we allow Ashley to leave if she would like?
Driving home tonight?
No, I'm saying,
Yeah.
You can't go.
Yeah, but she's.
can we go with us? Do you want to address that other item? Or?
Sure. Thank you.
So it is possible that if we wanted to move up the time frame on this, I was texting a colleague that I could have some sample language for your guys' meeting tomorrow night. And, you know, really it would be taking Madras' language. I know the tweaks that I would like to make to it already, making those and then putting in front of you tomorrow night as this would just be our base language, our discussion language. And then you guys could take a look at it. We would probably not have it until the end of the day tomorrow. So I wanted to throw that out as an option. If you guys would like to consider it then rather than next Tuesday.
We would still be getting a memo from you though between.
Probably on Friday. Yeah.
And what that does is that if we are able to get something in front of you tomorrow, we could potentially schedule chamber members the following week if we want to start.
Yeah, I see no harm in getting it in as early as possible.
You can always make changes in it.
Yeah.
I would be really clear that it's a discussion draft, that this is, you know, essentially what Madras does. Here are some of the changes that we would consider making. And this is just a start of the conversation.
When would we receive it?
Probably not till tomorrow afternoon.
And then then we would be able to discuss it tomorrow night at 6.
Mm-hmm. And again, just sort of throwing it out there to give options.
We probably have follow-up discussions when we get together.
25th.
Yeah,
25th, yeah.
25th.
So we keep 25th too? I mean,
Yeah.
I think we have to, as far as I'm concerned, because this is kind of an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any notice rules that we have to? Because
you already have
adding something to the agenda.
And it's like, again, it's a pretty light thing. You're not voting on it. It would just be like, yes, this looks about right. I don't have any questions about this. I would feel comfortable, you know, beginning to talk to people about this in the community.
Okay.
And can't you forward something from like this meeting to tomorrow's meeting?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no public meetings concerns with this. We already have a public meeting scheduled. We could just add this to the agenda.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, I will go get started on it then.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks for coming over.
Okay. What's our next item?
Next item is the building maintenance budget adjustment. That's a.
There it is.
Yes, we're asking for a budget adjustment. There's a resolution that is attached. It's about $25,000 that would come from contingency in the executive department. These are costs associated with modifying the air system and the police department and building the window so that we can have people pass things through without having to open doors. So, and the intent is to forward to June 1st.
Okay. Anybody have a problem with that?
Nope.
No questions, no problem.
And I don't know if there's, the door is still open, but in the past, it has been possible for cities to be reimbursed for COVID-related expenses. And so we would submit something like this.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's a good idea.
And Beach Transportation System Plan Monthly Update. Where's Chuck?
He's on Zoom.
He's just have to zoom in.
Oh,
Your power will be involved.
Hello,
Yep.
can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. Hey, I just wanted to give you guys an update and announce that the website is, like I said, it's been kind of up and running, but we'll be at the end of this week starting to put up all the advertisement and information for the open house that we'll be holding. And it's going to be an online open house from June 3rd through June 18th. And so what you'll go on, anyone can go on, kind of get the information on the existing conditions and current status, some of the early findings from some of the studies that they've already started looking through of the past plans, the parking study, and some of that work. And then they're going to be asking for feedback, and you'll also be able to follow the transportation study, join the mailing list, and then find out more information about the transportation study, transportation system program. And then also this will be the first of the interactive kind of story maps. Then what we'll be doing, as we're hoping and keeping our fingers crossed, is that by the next one, which should be probably late July, August, early August, to be able to do at least those that want to attend in person can come in person type of meeting. We thought with the lifting of the mask that we might be able to do some kind of quasi one with this one, but with it being so soon, we just felt let's go ahead with what we had planned to do, the online version.
Jeff, a couple of things in terms of getting the public involved. There's always the farmers market. We have community booths there. You could do something with one of those community booths at the farmers market, set something up so people can come by and take a look at it.
That's a great idea. Love that idea. Yeah, and we also thought of possibly something like that, little kiosk type of things at Mariners or Fresh Foods, and then possibly even something at the library as well. If we ever get up, hopefully we'll get some kind of up and running or be able to do some public interaction, and hopefully that'll be when we start getting into the alternatives phase and things like that. So we really need the input at that phase. So that's a great idea, and I think that'll work out timing wise as well.
The other thing too is if you whatever you post on your website, at least for public involvement, could you also post it on Facebook so that people can share that information? Because that seems to be a good place for people to look at, since we have no other news outlet.
Yeah, we will. And the other thing, Nancy, what we'll do is we will push it through all of ours, but we'll also, of course, push it to our partners. And then on our web page, we will have a press type of page, so anyone could come to it and also link to that.
Yeah, and of course, the community bulletin.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
Good, Jeff, thanks.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Night.
Okay, good of the order. Just one question for staff. Do we have any prospect for opening the doors and getting the people back in the meetings?
What we were waiting for was to get into the low category. We're talking about masks being able to come off, but we're still in the high category.
As of the 20th, though, I think it's changing.
Yeah, it's down to the moderate. We'll be down
Yeah,
to
yeah,
moderate.
but again, we would want to be into the low where we would open up City Hall. And just, I'm sorry, Nancy, right now, we've told our boards and committees that they can come, but we just don't want to have, a bunch of, people coming for items, that kind of thing. So right now, the boards are not limited as you all come to the meetings.
Are we going to continue, when we do have people come back in, are we going to continue to do Zoom?
Just going to go this way, away from Rusty, but I would think so.
Rusty's not.
Rusty knows that
Yeah.
already.
No, but I think it's a really good tool. I think
I
that
do
people
too.
being able to see the meetings, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're not here, you're able to participate. So I think it's a big step ahead for what we've done.
Seems like it's working.
So, and Rusty loves doing it.
Learning a lot.
Yeah, same thing as Jen, yeah.
Yeah, might as well keep them together, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Date night.
Yeah.
At coffee with the counselors on Monday, we had some interesting discussions. We talked about what needs to be done immediately for the city hall and the police station. We talked about the Midtown restrooms. Greg talked about possibly using lodging tax funding for Midtown restrooms. And of course, there's always that question of whether that's really allowed. Somebody also asked about why we can't use lodging taxes for other things other than tourism promotion. Of course, we had to go through our usual, it's the legislature folks situation. There was some talk about what we're doing for fireworks, and I think we have that pretty well.
It worked out really well.
Yeah, it did. It worked out well. And Deb is working on a flyer, which I saw.
And also signs.
And
that
signs,
people can put
right.
in front of each one of their yards.
Yeah,
So I don't think people are gonna say, well, I didn't know about that.
yeah.
Yeah, they will.
But yeah, so they're going to distribute signs in yards throughout Cannon Beach, so people will know. And then I guess the bike monitors are starting today. They started today.
I didn't see them today, but I think it was around this time, and lifeguards, I think, are going to be starting possibly next week. We're moving the tower on Friday.
Okay. And somebody suggested that Jason take a look at the 10-minute parking zones, and because they need to be repainted, freshened up so that people know that those are 10-minute parking zones. So it was a good discussion. We had a nice full rounded discussion.
Talk about dark skies.
No, Diane and Rex were in Portland.
Oh.
Yeah. But I
it's
did get
important.
I did get quite a letter from Rex the other day, again, still complaining about the dark sky ordinance and how the city's not following it, and residents don't seem to know about it, and code enforcement officer needs to go around and take a look, and I can forward that letter.
Yeah,
to you if
I
you'd
saw
like.
it. He mentioned the 7th Street pump station, and he's right, but it wasn't always that way. There's something different. That light from the pump station shines all the way through the forest, right up to our house. I thought our neighbors were violating it. And then I realized, no, it's even beyond that. And it is one heck of a bright light. So it ought to be looked at before you.
So I'll forward that letter. I can forward the letter to everybody, and also maybe to Jason, to the code enforcement officer, and maybe to Jeff as well. And it's Bruce.
Okay. I think they were valid points.
Oh, yeah.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Great.
Tomorrow night.